I'm General Merrill A. McPeak, Tony McPeak. I've been a civilian now for some years, but for a long time I was a fighter pilot and became the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force. Tonight you're going to see something about Desert Storm. I was in Washington in the Pentagon as one of the members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff during Desert Storm. So unhappily was trapped behind a desk and didn't get a chance to participate in the actual air combat out there. But it was a revelation for most people how complete and rapid our victory was in Desert Storm, and I think it was obvious to everybody that our use of air power there was the key to our quick and relatively easy victory. We learned a lot. We learned that stealth was very valuable, and we've built nothing but stealth combat aircraft since, really. We learned that precision-guided munitions were the way to go, that bomb tonnage in itself was much less important than the actual fact of hitting what you aimed at. So there were other lessons, but those were two big ones, and they have shaped the development of the Air Force and the other services in the years since then. I hope you enjoy it. Good luck, good flying.
These are the planes that won the Battle of Midway, that bombed the heart out of Hitler's Germany. The planes that fought the air war over the jungles of Indochina and the deserts of Iraq. These are the planes that define the meaning of air power. These are the legends of air combat.
The Iraqi invasion of Kuwait in August 1990 was the culmination of a long dispute between two neighboring and very different Arab states. Both were oil producers, but Iraq was a brutal dictatorship fielding the fourth largest army in the world, while Kuwait was a more benign totalitarian state whose native population was outnumbered by guest workers drawn from all over the Arab and Muslim world. After the conclusion of his war with Iran, Saddam Hussein turned his attention towards Kuwait. Kuwait had heavily funded the 8-year-long Iraqi war against Iran. By the time the war ended, Iraq was not in a financial position to repay the $14 billion it borrowed from Kuwait. Iraq argued that the debt should be forgiven since the war had prevented the rise of Iranian Islamic fundamentalism in the Arab world. Kuwait's reluctance to pardon the debt created strains in the relationship between the two Arab countries. According to George Perot, the FBI interrogator who questioned Saddam Hussein after his capture in 2003, Iraq tried repaying its debts by raising the prices of oil through OPEC's oil production cuts. However, Kuwait prevented a global increase in petroleum prices by increasing its own petroleum production, thus lowering the price and preventing recovery of the war-crippled Iraqi economy. This was seen by many in Iraq as an act of aggression, further distancing the countries. Though Kuwait's large oil reserves were widely considered to be the main reason behind the Iraqi invasion, the Iraqi government justified its invasion by claiming that Kuwait was a natural part of Iraq, carved off due to British imperialism. After signing the Anglo-Ottoman Convention of 1913, the United Kingdom split Kuwait from the Ottoman territories into a separate sheikhdom. Saddam's government argued that Kuwait was legally and historically a province of Iraq. In July 1990, Iraq began massing troops on the Kuwaiti border. April Glaspie, the American ambassador to Iraq, in a meeting 2 weeks before the invasion of Kuwait, informed Saddam Hussein that the USA had no interest in the internal affairs of the Gulf region. Saddam took this to mean that there would be no opposition to his annexation of Kuwait.
If the United States had clearly signaled it would be wrong to attack Kuwait, and under the United Nations Charter it's illegal for any state to challenge the territorial integrity of another, then, and the United States is obliged under the United Nations Charter and as a member state of the Security Council to, help to assure the defense of those states, who knows, that might have had the opposite effect of restraining Saddam Hussein. So I think it might be too strong to say it encouraged him, but it might be fair to think about the counterfactual of what would have happened had the U.S. said something completely different.
On August 2, 1990, overwhelming Iraqi forces overran Kuwait. In a single stroke, Saddam Hussein seized control of the world's second largest oil reserves and threatened the world's largest, those just over the border in Saudi Arabia. His troops seized anything valuable and shipped their ill-gotten gains back to Baghdad.
There was some fear that the next stop might be Saudi Arabia, which would be a much bigger player. I mean, Saudi Arabia is the dominant state within OPEC because it produces an enormous percentage of the world's oil, and more importantly, it is the reservoir of much of the world's oil reserves. And so no one wanted to see, that oil threatened in that way. Oil markets, like any other markets, appreciate stability, and so Saddam was bringing disorder. And so even if he was merely threatening Saudi Arabia and questioning the supply of oil, then that potentially could lead, and did lead for a short time anyway, to increase in oil prices.
What was really at issue for the U.S. was, and this kind of goes back to the Carter Doctrine, of having somebody who is not controllable in charge of so much of the world's oil. Because being positioned in Kuwait, the next target logically would be Saudi Arabia. And so that would give Saddam Hussein control over about 40% of the world's reserves. And that was just too much to tolerate.
The world waited to see what Saddam would do next.